Today we have a powerhouse guest, Laura Barnard, a globally recognized expert in strategy execution, PMOs, and transformation leadership. She is the creator of the Impact Engine system, an approach that's helping organizations bridge the gap between strategy and execution, of course with measurable business impact. She's here today to share from her book, The Impact Engine, Accelerating Strategy Delivery for PMO and Transformation Leaders. Thanks for joining us, Laura.
Thank you so much for having me here today, and hello to your fabulous audience that is growing every day.
Yes, they are. All right, fantastic. So today we'll begin with something quite basic, relatively. So let's start with a big question many listeners face. Why do organizations struggle to close the gap between strategy and execution, and how can they break down the silos between both?
Yeah, for sure. So thank you so much. Thanks for having me here. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to share some of the secrets from the Impact Engine. It's all about accelerating strategy delivery for PMO and transformation leaders. And that means all delivery leaders, project program managers, business transformation specialists, PMOs. As we were just doing our mastermind coaching call today, and we were talking about how a lot of people don't call it a PMO. They'll call it like a strategy delivery office or strategy realization office or all those kinds of things. There's a million names for the things we do, but it all is about delivering what? The organization's strategy. Even if you're not working on strategic projects, you still are involved in the realization of the organization's strategy. I was just talking to a client the other day, and they said, well, we have all these keeping the lights on operational activities. They're not strategic. And I said, well, maybe that's true, but maybe not, because I'm pretty sure that a part of your strategy is keeping the lights on so that you can deliver to your clients. So you may not think of it as a future focused strategic initiative, but kind of is. It's the engine that enables your strategic future, right? So I think it's super important that we keep that in context, is that everyone in the organization is involved in helping that organization achieve its strategic goals. And so one thing, actually, I have my copy of the book right here. You'll see that there's like all these little like notes and places that I have notes all over my own book, right? Because like, oh, this is something I want to share with people. Oh, this would be a great thing to talk about. So, but one thing that I have in the book that I decided to put in the beginning of the book before you even get to the title page of the book, was telling a little story about the strategy and execution process. You'll see I write on my own, my own book, right? Oh, this will be a good, so that's probably episode 257 right there, is probably the podcast episode around that. So what we have in here, if you look at this, we have the strategy, the chess queen, right? Like this is think of that as your strategy for the organization, finding the vision and the direction of the organization and where it's trying to go. And then over here, we have execution, the delivery engine, how the people deliver for the organization, all of your audience, right? Delivery leaders in different roles in the organization. Here's the problem though. The way most organizations operate is they have their strategy over on this side here, right? They got their strategy, and then they throw that over the fence to the delivery people and say, here, go get it done, right? Like that's what happens, right? Go get that done. And that's like the last time you see a lot of those strategy people, right? Like they're off to the next shiny new thing. And they're like, well, I did a town hall. Why doesn't everybody understand what the company's strategy is? It's like, that's not how it works, right? So the reason many organizations can't close the gap between strategy and execution is that they've literally built their organizations to reinforce the gap between strategy and execution. So think about that for a second. They have reinforced that gap in how they are organized, how they operate, how they behave, how they communicate, the things they are saying, the things they're not saying. Oh, that's your problem over there. The fact that the strategy people don't pay attention to what's going on in the delivery space until something goes wrong. The fact that the delivery people aren't involved in the strategy process up front most of the time. That's why there's a gap. It's not because things are these symptoms show up in the execution stage, because that's when you start to see if those ideas are actually going to become a reality, right? But the problems are happening before those projects ever kick off. So the reason that organizations struggle with it so much, and this is what I tell C-suite executives all the time, is because you're built an organization that's reinforcing the gap. So that's the silos that we have to break down. And like we talk about it, the way we talk about it in the book is making sure that the strategy and the execution are together, right? Do those things together. Strategy and execution should be together throughout the entire strategy process, from defining the strategy to delivering on the strategy to ensuring that that strategy realizes its intended business goals. That's what needs to happen. The reason they can't, it is solvable. And the reason that they can't close the gap is because they're reinforcing it. So what they have to reimagine a whole new way to operate that breaks those silos down, understanding that your delivery people are the best people to help you figure out how to deliver that strategy. And they're the best people to help you prioritize to make sure that strategy gets delivered and to put good governance in place to have the decision making needed, necessary in order to achieve the goals. So that's why it can't be done. But also, we need to step up delivery people and understand that there's more that we should be doing than just checking boxes and taking orders, right? Like
That makes
you can be an order taker or an impact driver. And my suggestion is if you actually want to be seen as valuable in your organization, you've got to be valuable by helping them figure out how to solve those problems.
That makes so much sense. That makes so much sense. I like the fact that you mentioned basically, and subconsciously that will play out. They are reinforcing the divide, right? And
Right.
ensure their actions are causing the divide to be widened, the gaps to be widened, basically. And I like the fact that you picked on how the leaders can begin to support and help to close that gap. And that takes me to that gets me to the next question. So, what is the role? What typically is the role of the traditional PMO or program lead, and how can they transition into being the impact driver their enterprise needs?
Yeah, for sure. So I built my first PMO in 1999, a long time ago. That was the first chance I had to build a PMO. And I had no idea what I was doing, right? And so I started reading all the books and taking the classes as things were available. Like you couldn't back then, by the way, that for most people, they don't remember. This is before the World Wide Web, right? So you couldn't just Google. Google was just getting started then, believe it or not, with Yahoo and all the others who were just getting in front of all this. You couldn't just Google how to set up a PMO and get 8 million results like you can today. But what you did do is you took classes and you read books, and these big books that were really hard to read that were like, you should do all of these things, written by mostly theorists, not practitioners. So what happened in this industry is that we were all taught that what we were supposed to do was all the templates and the tools and the process. So we were all trained that that's what we should do. But I'll tell you what, when I started implementing all the shoulds, my executives were saying, I don't know what's going on, but stop doing that. Like, that's not helping us. And so I'm not saying you shouldn't use templates, tools, and process. I'm saying you have to use them in the right way. I like to say using them for good instead of evil. You got to use them to accelerate delivery of your strategy, not slow it down, right? So what people need to understand is the context. The traditional PMO, frankly, it never really worked, right? Like not in terms of what the executives define as successful. But executives forever, since PMOs have started, have been trying to figure out how to fix them to make them more valuable. And all the PMO, like the traditional PMO people, and I've gotten into arguments with people online on this, is they're like, the PMO's job is to make projects perfect. In the eyes of whom? Right? Like for you, because you checked all the boxes, or because it actually drove real business value, right? And so projects are means, not an end. It's not about how perfect your projects can be. It's about the outcomes that they help you drive. And so traditional PMOs that were built on the old school thinking of our job is to perfect the project have completely missed the point. The point of what is why is your project supposed to be perfect? Who is determining that perfection? I'm telling you that the secret to the future of PMOs, and not only are we influencing it, but we see it. The reason we're influencing it is because we see it coming. We're talking to executives. All of these people that are saying that it's about the perfect project have not been talking to executives, because executives don't care at all about your projects. What they care about is the results those projects are supposed to drive. So I don't know if it's traditional versus more modern, as much as it is the way we were trained was that our value was tied to the certifications we had and the training we had and the experience we had. But I'm telling you, those certifications and the projects and all of it is a means. It's not the end. So I don't care how many certifications or letters you have after your name. If you don't know how to use that to help me accelerate the delivery of my strategy, I don't care. And I've been a CEO for 11 years and an executive for a decade before that. So, it does not, like, I'm speaking the words of the executives, and a lot of people that have been influential in this space are coming to this space to try and change things because we're executives and we see it, or we're talking to executives and they're begging for this. What they want is they want the PMO or whatever they call it. A lot of executives, if you let them name it, they won't call it a project management office. Why? Because you can ask them one question: what do you want this to do for you? And they don't really want it to manage the projects. If they say that, it's because they don't know that they can actually speak a better language to you, which is what I'm actually trying to do, is deliver on my strategy in a way that gets me the highest possible return on investment as quickly as possible. That's what they're trying to do. So it is not about perfecting our outputs. And no matter what these certifications taught you, and no matter what you were hired for, it is not because you know how to check boxes. It's not because you know how to create deliverables. It's because we're assuming that if you have that certification, it means that you're able to help me accelerate the delivery of my strategy. And if you can't, then what are we all here for, right? So I think that's I don't know if it's so much traditional versus modern or traditional versus impact driven. It's a shift in mindset and focus and getting closer aligned to what the executives are actually asking for, what they actually want, right? Which is to deliver the results, right? So everybody listening, I want them to take on the mindset of being an investment manager, right? You are an investment manager. How do I know? Because you were given funding and people invested funding, resources, energy, focus, and what you needed to be successful in getting them to an outcome. You have an investment that you have a fiduciary responsibility to your organization to help them achieve those business goals. If you were to give money to an investment manager in your retirement plan and they just created a bunch of perfect processes but didn't actually get you any money, you'd be a little upset. Right. So that's the mindset shift. That's what it means to be an impact driver, is to shift the focus from outputs to better business outcomes, and to understand that your role is a fiduciary for your organization and ensuring that the organization achieves its business goals in a way that made it worth doing in the first place. And if that means your outputs aren't perfect, but your outcomes are achieving the success criteria, then you're successful. And even PMI has been saying this recently. We're like all excited that PMI is finally saying the things we've been saying for so long, which is project success is very different than project management success. You know why PR is saying that? You know why the PMI is saying that? Because they're trying to move traditional thinking, process perfecting people to a mindset of, I don't care how perfect your project management is. I care about if you get us the business results. And that's what project success means.
Awesome. I like the fact that you mentioned, or you recommended that project leaders should and PMO leaders should begin to think of themselves as investment managers, right?
Right.
That is very, very important because many see themselves as task deliverers.
Right. Right.
As opposed to, oh, this is an investment. I have a fiduciary responsibility to deliver on a benefit to business. So I know you did touch on this a bit. How can project leaders, including managers, effectively, from a mindset standpoint, how can they shift from delivering tasks to being impact drivers themselves?
Yeah. So it just came up in our mastermind today. Somebody said, because I've been saying it for a long time, somebody said, are you an order taker or an impact driver? And I love it when I hear the mastermind students repeating back the things that I've been trying to instill in them for all this time. But that is the essence of it. Do you want to some people do, and that is okay. And there's no judging. If you just want to be somebody that's like, I'm doing my tasks and I'm going home and I don't want to talk to anyone. I want to do my things and I just want to do my tasks. Fine. But that is being an order taker, right? And that is frankly going to be replaced by a lot of technology and automation and AI and things like that. Order takers, that task-driven capability will be replaced over the next many years. It's already happening, right? We're already putting technology in place that's doing that. A lot of companies are leveraging AI to do a lot of the task-driven work. So yeah, you can do that, but that is not where the superpower of PMOs and project management live. The superpowers are in what we call the impact driver framework, which is 6 mindset shifts to help you become more aligned with driving business value for your organization. And this is for project managers, program managers, product managers, PMO leaders. It's for everybody. Like, I use this 6 mindset shifts with my teenager. right? And because this is about how people drive value in our society,
Yes.
in our economy. So the first one is instill focus, and this has two parts. It is not just focusing on like getting the most important things done, but it's understanding what those most important things are. So think about it from, most people in an organization do not understand why they're doing what they're doing. A Harvard Business Review did a study that said 95% of the typical workforce does not understand their company strategy. So if they don't understand their company strategy, they don't know why they're doing the work they're doing. So instill focus is about understanding why you're doing the work you're doing and how that is going to achieve the business goals for the organization, and being able to tie your work to it and focus on those most important priorities, right? So that's instill focus. Measure outcomes. I already touched on this. Shift from thinking about perfecting your outputs to driving better business outcomes, right? And so what do you measure? Well, you don't just measure on time, on scope, on budget. You measure, are we actually achieving the business goals, right? Again, I can tell you that every leader, if given the choice between perfect outputs and better outcomes, is going to choose the better outcomes, right? And so it's just now, how do we get there, right? And if they aren't saying those things, it's because they don't understand that you can actually help them get to those outcomes. So they're saying, all I know that you can do is, on time, on scope, on budget. But I think there's an opportunity for us to be thinking bigger there. The third one, perform relentlessly. Every time in the strategy lifecycle, when we see problems in strategy execution, and executives will say projects are taking too long and costing too much. So what do PMO and project people do? Throw more process at it, throw more templates at it, throw more tools at it. And I'm not saying you don't need those, but it should be, what are the key things we need to do that are going to help us accelerate getting to the results, as opposed to just simply saying, all right, well, this process is broken, so I'm going to add it. Or like, I see this constantly. We have to go break it a lot of times when we work with organizations. I was working with a PMO years ago, and they said, nobody's engaging in our intake process. We have this great intake process and nobody's engaging with us. We need to get more customers, more people to engage with us, or we're not going to be able to show value. I said, show me your intake process. There was 45 questions that they had to answer before somebody could engage with the PMO. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is why nobody wants to talk to you. You
Of
made it so
course.
hard to engage, right? Like, you should be having like, what's your business problem? Ask one question. Or you could be like really wild and ask three, which is all you need in your business case. What are you trying to do? Why are you trying to do it? And what does success look like? Like, that's what you need to know in order to be able to get a conversation started. That's it. Like, just frame it, just to give them enough, like they have to do the homework to say, what am I trying to accomplish? Why do I want to do that? How will we know it worked, right? Like, that's it. So in Perform Relentlessly, it's about how do we look at everything we're doing, the meetings, the templates, the tools, the process, the stuff, and our communication, and streamline and optimize and simplify so that we can move faster and get everybody into flow. And then next is Adapt to Thrive, which is all about the myth that people are resistant to change. Justice, have you ever met anyone resistant to change?
Many, many, so
So
many.
here's the thing though. I bet you, let me know, have those same people ever gotten married? Do any of them have kids? Do any of them like ever change jobs? Do any of
Of
them ever go to
course.
a new restaurant?
Of
Do any of them
course.
ever take a different commute to work,
Of
right? To
course.
try something new all the time, go see a new movie. It's not that people are resistant to change. They're resistant to having change done to them. So the problem we have, Justice, is that so many people meet change resistant people because those people don't want to have change done to them.
Done to them.
Right. So don't do change to people, do it with them, right? And so a lot of
Mm-hmm.
what we teach is how to use the power of organizational change management techniques to bring people with you on the journey so you don't hit that resistance, right? So that's a really important one. And then next, communicate with purpose. Have you heard, Justice, that communication is like the key to success on projects, right? Like, we've all heard that, right? But what does that actually mean? I'll tell you what it doesn't mean. It doesn't mean that you have an email thread with 85 different back and forth replies, and then you forward it to someone and you say FYI. And they're like, what? What am I supposed to do with this? Nobody reads those, by the way, just so you know. Nobody ever reads them, so don't do them, right? Or every executive I talk to when we start with a new client, the CEO always says, everybody wants me to make decisions, but I don't have the information I need to do so. So we do our root cause analysis. Well, why is that happening? We go talk to the PMO. We say, hey, PMO, why is it the executive doesn't have the information they need to make the decisions? They're like, what are you talking about? We have 62 reports and 85 different metrics. And then they talk about all these things they're putting in front of the executives. They're like, Oh, okay. So correct. They don't have the information they need to make decisions, right? There's so much information coming at them that they're being bombarded and they don't know what to focus on. And so you get in a meeting with them and they're stuck on the bottom of page 14 on a little metric at the bottom of the page. And you're like, and you're so frustrated because now you have to have another meeting and then another meeting, and another meeting to get a decision. Well, that's your fault because you put a 14-page report in front of them and they're stuck. Right. So it's about understanding what do we need to do to drive actions and decisions in our meetings, in our reports, in our communications. How do we streamline and simplify that to get to the results? And then once you've done all those things, Justice, the last step is transform mindset. And this is usually where people be like, oh, great, now I get to change everyone's mind about how valuable we are. No, this is where you get to change your mind about the role you should be playing to shift from order taker to impact driver and actually step into what we call the strategy navigator role, which is playing bigger, right? And understanding that you can actually be a trusted advisor, the investment manager, the business partner to the executives, and actually drive more value. And you don't have to be running a PMO to do that. You don't have to be managing projects. My executive assistant is an impact driver for me. Understands that her job isn't just to schedule meetings for me. Her job is to help me across the board in making my life easier so that this company can achieve its big lofty goals, right? So you don't have to be in a certain level in an organization. She's incredibly important and valuable to me, right? As is everybody that's on my team. They understand that their job is there to drive business value, right? So the transform mindset is about letting go of the order taker, task driven output perfection focus and shifting to how might I help my organization achieve its business goals? Because if you want to be seen as valuable, you actually have to be valuable.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for itemizing the six.
Yeah.
To have project leaders begin to see themselves as impact drivers and begin to get towards that direction. Now, what will a project leader do right now to increase their own strategic impact? And for PMO leaders, what will be practical first steps to take?
I love it. So here's the thing. Sometimes when we talk to project managers, they'll say, yeah, but how do I ensure? So we have three stages. We call it the strategy life cycle. And what I just went over with the impact driver framework, that's chapter 2 and woven throughout the whole book. But in chapter 1, we talk about this thing called the strategy life cycle. And the strategy life cycle has strategy definition, strategy execution, strategy realization. The gap that everybody thinks exists is between strategy definition and strategy execution. But what we talked about is there are actually a lot more gaps throughout the entire strategy life cycle because we even haven't set those projects up for success. Nobody's looking at the end of the life cycle to see if the project's actually delivered value. So there are two different roles that project managers versus PMO leaders can have here. So most times project managers are receiving the project that's already been well defined or not well defined, right? They're receiving the project and they have to plan and deliver it. Whatever their implementation approach is doesn't matter for the purpose of this discussion. It's execution, right? They got to plan and deliver the projects. Well, one of the first things that a project manager can do before that, like if the project manager is going to make sure that project is successful, they better understand those three things. What are we doing? Why are we doing it? And what does success look like, right? So that is a business case. So if you start a project and there is no business case, then you have to get one in place, whether it's a formal template or not. You get the answer to those three questions. Because if you do that well, then you can continue to communicate throughout the entire life cycle of the project. What are we doing? Why are we doing it? What does success look like?
Successful.
And
Yeah.
how do we achieve that, right? Every meeting should start with that. Every conversation should start with that. And if you can, get your sponsor to come in and have that conversation, right? So those are things that a project manager can do to ensure projects set up for success. What can the PMO do? Ensure that there's a business case resource. Ensure that the executives are prioritizing the portfolio of initiatives so everything isn't number one priority. Because you know what's going to happen to that project manager if everything's number one priority? They're going to be fighting for 1/16 of a critical resource in their project and they're going to really struggle. And so then they're going to say, how am I supposed to get anything done? And everyone's going to blame the project manager, and it's not the project manager's fault. This is where the PMO can come in to say, let's actually have good governance, good portfolio management, good business cases, and a good, process for prioritizing so that everybody in the company understands what success looks like and what the priorities are. So we can assign resources according to priority, et cetera. People don't have the resource management problem they think they do, right? Everyone complains they don't have enough resources and there's a resource management problem. And how do we solve for that? Well, that's a symptom. The root cause is everything's the number one priority, right?
Mhm.
There's no prioritization. So what you have is executives trying to shove 10 pounds of projects in a 5-pound bag, right? And so the projects are just flowing over because you don't actually have enough resources to do the work. So instead, let's flip that around. It's not that you don't have enough resources, it's that you don't have good prioritization in place and clear communication of the strategic alignment, the prioritization, and a good decision-making process to ensure that those projects are successful. So PMO people, you can do a better job of what we do, what we call setting up the strategy for success and strategy definition, so that when the projects are executed, they're executed well. Save your project managers, right? Like they need help. And that's
Yes.
something that project manager can influence. Hey, we need a business case. We need, we need to answer these 3 questions. If you're a project manager and you don't have that, ask those 3 questions. And then if you hit resistance, because everyone will say, yeah, but nobody will tell me these things. Well, are you an order taker or an impact driver, right? If you're an order taker, then you're just going to say, woe is me, I can't solve these problems. If you're an impact driver, you're going to say, you can go to that sponsor and say, how much do you care about this project being successful? Oh, you care? This is important. This is important to your job. Good. Because I'm asking questions to find out what they care about, right? And this is important for their next promotion, right? I know these things because I'm engaging with my sponsor, my stakeholders to understand what they actually care about. They're with them, right? So I understand that that sponsor wants this project to be successful. Great. If you want it to be successful, then I need to make sure that everybody on this project understands what we're doing, why we're doing it, and what success looks like. Right. And that is the only way this project will be successful. So it would be ideal for you to come and communicate that to the team so they can hear it from you and see your passion for how important this is. And then we will carry that with us through every conversation through the life cycle of this project. But there's another piece. Then we have to actually make sure that these projects achieve their business goals, which
Of
is
course.
strategy realization. The problem we have is that a lot of PMOs will focus on benefits realization, right? Well, the benefits is the plus side of the equation, but actual worth it factor or return on investment, whether it's like dollar return or
Financial,
some
not
kind of
financial.
impact or value return, right?
Mhm.
We need to make sure that the things we're doing were worth doing in the first place. Well, that's something where the PMO can help ensure that success criteria, what does success look like, is in something that is measurable so that it can be measured throughout the life cycle of the project to say we're still on track. It looks like we'll still get this. Do you know that if we made this change, we'd be able to double our worth it factor, our return on investment? Let's do that, right? Nobody's thinking about that. They're thinking about outputs and deliverables. That's benefits. But nobody
Mhm.
cares about your benefits if they don't achieve the business goals, right? So you see how project and PMO people need to be working together in tandem in this fluid relationship across the entire strategy lifecycle to ensure that these projects are set up for success, the people are set up for success to deliver on them, and then we actually measure when that project manager is gone and off to their next 16 projects, who's around still? The PMO. The PMO should be measuring because you don't get your results day one for most projects. It takes time. Well, the PMO is an entity that stays around for a long time and can be measuring. Did we do what we said we were going to do? And did we get the results we said we were going to get? And that's how they all work together in this. What can the project manager do versus what the PMO people can do? But they have to be working together in partnership to achieve those business goals.
Love it, love it. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the clarity on both responsibilities and roles. Now, can you let's bring this to life for the audience.
Sure.
Let's talk about how, for example, in a specific line of business that was probably a traditional PMO in the way they went about things, just delivering tasks and not looking at, the other benefits. How did such entity get transformed to an impact driving entity? Let me put it that way.
So it all goes back to that mindset. Like we see this all the time with our clients and with our students. We have what's called so we have the book, right, which is a great place to start. But I have this program called the Impact Engine System, which is like way deeper than this. Like, this is like it'd be like 10 of these, right? So and it's like it's the same 6 stages, but it's like much deeper. It's much deeper than we can get into in a book. But what we do is we start with the foundation with those mindset shifts and understanding the role, all the things I've talked to you about so far. The way that it's okay if you are where you are, right? And if this is the way you've been functioning, and it's not your fault, frankly. If somebody is listening to this and feeling bad because they're like, oh, I thought I was doing what success looked like. Let me just say, it's not your fault. And you're not wrong. You were taught that your value was tied to your training and your learning and your certification. And you were hired for it probably too. right? And so the problem is you're even being hired, which is reinforcing. Well, if I have my PMP, for example, I'm being hired for that skill, which means I need to be perfect at what the PMP taught me, right? Or what the PMBOK taught me, right? Well, the good news is, and I happen to be very, very close with several of the people that have written PMBOK 8. So I know what's coming, and it's getting me more toward the kinds of things I'm talking about, because the people that are influencing it are the people that have been influencing this space in that direction, right? So I know what's coming with PMBOK 8, and there was a review period on it. There's a lot more conversation about value and outcomes and getting to the bigger business picture of what you're doing and why, right? Why are you doing what you're doing? You hear Pierre talking about it now. Everybody's talking about it.
A lot, yes.
Success, right? Project success, not project management success. So what's happening is that people are seeing a new way that they can play this role. People are seeing a new way that they can step into a role that is really meaningful and what's possible. And it creates so much freedom. There's so much freedom when you understand that you are not shackled by a long list of must-have shoulds, and you can actually use your common sense and put your common sense into common practice. Like, I think I just heard this on my mastermind call today. People are saying, "Oh my gosh, so much of what we're talking about doing here is just common sense, but why isn't that happening? Why isn't that common practice in organizations?" And listen, I have my PMP. I've had my PMP for 21 years. 20 and a half years. I've had my PMP for a long time. I've been involved in PMI for a long time. I've been involved in furthering this profession for decades. I am a strong believer in certifications and training and learning, but it's not what you know, it's what you do with what you know, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
your impact, your value, your opportunity is in taking that knowledge and using your intelligence to figure out what to apply, when, and how to accelerate the results. You can take what you have learned. In fact, we have our version of the PMP program, and our coaching and learning and training around it to get certified is all case study based. It's all based on how do we show you how to think about all the things you know and figure out the best way to apply them to get the results in your organization, right? So for people that are like in this kind of mindset of, okay, well, I've been doing it this way all this time, that's okay. You're part of the way there. Now it's time to level up and know that you have an opportunity to not look for perfect projects, but look for better results, right? Perfect your path to drive higher business value faster, not the templates, the tools, and process you're creating. I guarantee you that if your process is not perfect, but your results are, that's where the value is for an organization. The executives, when they are focused on trying to get you to perfect outputs, it's because that someone told them it was the only way to get to the outcomes they were trying to drive. But you now know better. Everybody that's listening or watching this knows better now and knows that they can use all of the valuable knowledge and skills you have, but apply a layer of common sense to it, that if I was running this company, would I really care how pretty my templates were? Or would I care that we just doubled our revenue? Right?
Yes.
Like, you know what I mean? Like we are putting a lot of governance and process and structure and SOPs and things like that in our organization. So I am living and breathing evidence that I value all of the templates and the tools in the process, but I only want to use the ones that are going to help us move faster and get to our results faster. And that's what we're talking about here. It's not that you have to let go of everything you already know. It's how you use what you know to accelerate the results.
Awesome. That sounds like, so everything said sounds more like a response to, if the listeners remember something actionable they can take away. What you've said now basically speaks more to that, because they need to begin to see themselves as quote unquote partners, right?
Right.
Partners in delivering value, long-lasting business value, actually, right? Then even for PMOs who are probably there for the length of life, for the life of so many projects, and post to leave and getting to see the benefits from those projects, they need to help the project managers as well, so that those ones understand what you're doing and focus on the success, right, on a day-to-day basis. So
Right.
that speaks directly to that. what I would do now, the question I would ask now is, I think at this point, listeners can benefit from understanding how to be a part of the work you're doing. So for those who want to dive deeper into your work and the Impact Engine framework, right? Where can people learn more, and what's coming up very shortly for you?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, this is an easy way, right? Like, this is the most inexpensive way. You like this and the podcast, which is free. We've got
Yep.
about 300 episodes of the PMO Strategies podcast out there that people can go listen to. We'll have to have you on there so we can have a conversation over there.
Awesome.
But so we've got the podcast, we do webinars, we do workshops, we do all kinds of things. You can go look for events on the PMO Strategies website, or you can go and learn more about the book at impactenginebook.com. And there's, we have all three formats. Like, my favorite thing to do, like, I like to have a physical book. You can see I like to write in them and everything. And every once in a while, my students will show me like how they've scribbled all over it. And I'm like, I love right? Because it means they're using it, right? My mastermind students call it like their purple playbook, right? Like, it's the thing they carry with me. They always have it on their desk. They're always with them. Like, I need this to help me, like, remind me of the things, right? So that's all about doing the work, right? But I like to also get the audiobook and like let the author read it to me, like while I'm reading it, or I'll listen while I'm at the gym or whatever. And then I'll get back to and scribble things down in my book. So we have all three formats: the digital, print book. If you buy it from our website, I sign it and send it to you. And add a little goodies in there. But that's, I think, a great way to get started, right? Is the Impact Engine book. If people know that they're like setting up a PMO, or business transformation team or strategy delivery office or whatever, we have the Impact Engine system and a mastermind, which is where I spend my time coaching them through all the work that they're doing. And they learn from their peers that have already been there, that have already done it, that are in the program still because they're continuing to get value. So we have the Impact Engine system full implementation program. We have a mastermind for PMO and transformation leaders. And that's been running since 2017. But this year we opened up a new level for the rest of your audience, which is program managers, project managers, IT managers, Scrum masters, product managers, people that are more in the day-to-day delivery side. We have a leadership and competency development program for them too. And I think the whole reason we do all of these things is because, frankly, none of those programs are where we make our money in our business. That just keeps we just keep steady state. Our money is made in the consulting side and training and those kinds of things, right? We do these things because I didn't have any of this when I was in that role, right?
Same
when
here.
I was in that's why you're doing what you're doing. You didn't have what you needed, right? Like, you're like, there's a gap. I need more. I need something different. Well, I had to rely on people. That's why I have such a business focused mindset. I didn't have other PMO leaders to look to or people that were doing business transformation that I could learn from. So I was either learning from theorists or I was learning from practitioners in other parts of the industry, right? So I learned a lot of my skills from being mentored by top business leaders in my organizations, right? And then starting to collaborate with my peers in the space. That's how I learned everything. So what we do as a company is give people the things we wish we had, like Laura in 1999 that had no idea what the heck she was doing the first chance she had to build a PMO after doing project management for a while. She didn't know. And so I tried to build those things for those people that come after me and reach behind and bring the next generation of people along, but make it easier for them than it was for us. So that's why we do the programs we do, is specifically to help serve this community, I think, in a really high impact way.
Fantastic. And for the audience, this is why ChatGPT or any tool out there would not give you the substance of what's being discussed on this podcast and even on PMO strategy podcasts and other podcasts, right. PM podcasts out there. There is a lot of context to things, including the book, the resources that great PMO leads have, right? The context is something that can be applied, practical, effective, and not just, the empathy, the art of the art of leading, the art of engaging, right? It's not something an AI would give you at this point, at least, So right. I would encourage that you please reach out, get the book. It will be valid. I will get it. I always get the books of my guests, so I will definitely get it and definitely go through it as well. Now, at this point, we hope this has been useful to you and you have learned something, PM leads, PMO leads, and other executives. Please let us engage, like, share, and comment. And when you do so, don't forget to subscribe and
Yes.
click the bell notification button if you wish to continue to get great content connecting life and IT project management. And until our next show, please remember every man is the architect of his fortunes. Thank you.
Thank you.